What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you missed the last video, we got the front and rear bumpers primed and Raptor line looking super good. Now we got a few things to do to it. We got to get the lights in, we got to get the lights wired, get the winch in the bumper, get the bumpers on, get the snowplow on, and hopefully there's still a little bit of snow out there. We can go try it out. It has been warm and the snow is slowly disappearing. So hopefully we still got a little bit by the time we're done putting this thing back together. So if you guys saw when we painted the bumpers, what I actually ended up doing is masking the hooks, and I just hung them from the hooks. That was the easiest way to get these bumpers hung and painted. So what I'm going to do is just mask around the hooks on the bumpers, front and rear, and put a little primer black paint on those hooks, and then we can get to installing lights, winch, all that good stuff. Let's get after it. All right, we got our lights in, looking good. Rear bumper as well. Oh, if you guys noticed, yes, that is a little bit light right around these hooks on the Raptor liner. So that kind of bugs me, but obviously I'm not going to respray it. But either way, what we got to do now is I want to swap out the cable for this rope. And what I'm going to do is just wire it into a battery so I can actually use it to spool it back up and make it easier that way. So I'm gonna hook all the wiring up. Probably just grab, I don't know, one of my jet ski batteries, wherever those went, hook that up and swap out the cable, and then we can throw the winch in. Well guys, I wasn't able to get this end of the rope through that hole. This is way too big. So what I opted to do is lay this across like that. And then when I wrap up the rope over the top of it, that's gonna hold it nice and sturdy in place. So I think this should work just fine as long as you don't unravel the whole spool of rope. It's gonna stay just fine. So let's wrap this thing up. We're just gonna grab the controller, and you just wanna work back and forth on the spool until you're filled up and out of rope, and then we are done. All right, guys, we got this thing spooled up, so I actually had to take this off of the inside end of the rope just because it's taking up so much space. I wasn't able to get the whole spool of rope in this winch, so you can see it's very tight. It's already touching these guides here, so it's very tight. That's why I had to pull that off. So we are good to go now. Let's throw the winch in the bumper, get this all bolted on, get the fair lead bolted on. All right, guys, we are ready to put these bumpers on. So I want to show you the setup here. So we got the winch, the two main wires that run over. Here's my relay that's mounted right under here, and that shouldn't get wet because the whole top is closed off, you see, and the body of the cab is going to be right here. So there's only just a little bit of a gap here. Yes, I'm able to reach my hand up in there and connect wires and all that good stuff. And then I have the mount for the handheld controller right there. And yes, that does plug right in, no problem. You can see, just like that. So we are good to go. One thing I want to do before I put at least the rear bumper on is I had a couple of really good ideas for this bolt problem going up into the frame. So what I think I'm going to do, like a few of you said, is I'm going to make a plate that goes inside of the frame here with nuts welded onto it. And then I actually think I'm going to tack it on the bottom right here just to keep it in place. And once those bolts are cranked down, that thing's not going to move. So let's make up that plate, weld some nuts on it, get it up in here, and just tack it along the bottom. All right, we got those plates welded in there. So obviously that weld on the bottom is not going to be that strong, but the only function of that weld is just to hold that plate in there till you get the bolts in. So that should work really good. We're going to let that paint dry. One thing we got to do before we throw the front bumper on is I mounted my switch right here for the winch up and down, or in and out, I guess. That was just the best spot I found for it, instead of cutting big holes in the dash over here. And you can still reach it with, you know, your right hand on the wheel and your left hand on the switch. But we got to run this wire out. So what I think I'm going to do is come down here and alongside these other cables that come through the floor, I'm going to drill a hole, and I got a grommet. Just went to Napa, the parts store, got this grommet, so we're going to throw that grommet in there, throw the wire through, and then we also need to run this red wire up through that same hole and this will go to the ignition. That is to just turn the relay on when the ignition is on, and it disables the whole winch system when you turn the ignition off. So just kind of a safety feature. You could just tie this into the hot lead here, and the winch would be active no matter if you had your ignition on or off. But I'm gonna do it right. I'm just gonna run this one wire up to the ignition, so not a big deal. Alright guys, we are all wired in. I just tapped into this ignition. This little harness right here runs right up to ignition. So I just tapped in my ignition wire for the winch right there. We got our power cables run. Probably not gonna be able to see. I guess you can see them coming up right here. And those were right about perfect. If they were like an inch shorter, they probably wouldn't have fit. So we got them hooked up here, got them tied up out of the way and safe. One thing I wanted to mention is when I was building this bumper, I mentioned doing rev nuts. Well, that's not what I did. That wasn't going to be near strong enough. So I actually built some plates. You can see there and down there. And then there's one back behind that heater box right there, you can see. So that's probably going to be the strongest way to go. So we should be good to go with the winch. All we got to do now is turn the ignition on and see if she works. There we go. We are working, boys. So I think before we throw the plow on, I want to wire in my pod lights for the front. And then, like I said, the rear ones, I think I'm going to just tap into this, let me see, one of these wires. I think is that one there. That was the reverse light. I have a waterproof relay, so I'm going to mount the relay somewhere back here and just tie these into the reverse lights. I don't need those on all the time, obviously, just when you're in reverse. So that should work pretty good, and then we won't have to worry about a switch in the dash at all, running wires all the way up there. It's going to be tied into the reverse lights. All right, we got the pod lights and the front bumper wired in to that switch right there. Mounted the relay right there. One thing I may still do is shorten this other half of the lead because it's way too long. But we should be good to go. Let's flip the switch and see what happens. There we go. Lights are on. Perfect. Those should be plenty bright. I know they're not going to clear the plow. The normal headlights should clear. If not, I may possibly do something with the light bar on the roof. That is still undecided, but in the summertime when I don't have the plow, those will work just fine. So if I do a light bar, I do want them on separate switches. So I'll probably, if I do end up doing a light bar, I can put my other switch right there above that one, and that should work pretty good. All right, guys, we are getting ready to wire in the reverse lights on the bumper. So this is the relay. that I picked up, fully waterproof, and then I just got this inline fuse. So how we're gonna wire this up is just like that. So red pin 30 is from the battery, pin 85, the black is ground, the other side the white is the trigger wire from the harness in the truck for the reverse lights, and then the 87, the blue, is going to go to our lights on the bumper. I'll probably just loop this ground around, bolt it through here into the frame. That should be pretty easy. Run a lead up to the battery, and then fairly simple, just run a wire from the trigger, which is this plug right here, run the hot wire into that relay, and then just wire these into the relay, and then the ground out of the lights, we're gonna have to ground the frame somewhere as well. All right, we're all wired in. Let's go see if they work. Ignition on and reverse. We got lights. I'll turn or put it in neutral. There we go. Working exactly like I want them to. All right, guys, we are working. We got the plow lifted up off the ground. I didn't see the bumper move. I didn't see the plow mount move. It did sag these front springs. So we're definitely gonna need to install those heavier springs. I think that'll help out a lot. You can see it didn't sag a lot, but those springs will definitely help. Everything seems very sturdy. Unfortunately, all the snow pretty much melted. There's not much out here, you can see. So can't really go test it out yet, but I guess in the meantime, until it snows next, we can knock a few more things off the list with springs and suspension wise, maybe put the tires on, all that good stuff coming very, very soon. Well guys, I really wish we could go out and try this plow out, see how it works, but like I said, unfortunately we don't really have any snow right now. So next time it snows, we're 100% gonna bring this thing out and see what it can do. Like I said, in the meantime, we got a bunch more work to do to it and get this thing completely ready for the season. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Go smash the thumbs up button, drop a comment, let me know what you guys think about this build so far. If you have any more ideas on what we can do, I got a few more ideas, things that I want to do to it. So we'll see what happens. Maybe this thing will turn into just a full out build, who knows. For me, it's hard to stop myself, especially with something like this that's kind of a unique truck. I just love making it even more unique, putting my finishing touches on it, all that good stuff. Well anyways, go drop a comment. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one.